Hello, everyone. It's Jerry at the Fledge. Welcome to another episode of Every Damn Day. And today on the show, we've got our good friend Kelli. How you doing today, Kelli?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am doing well too. So, where you at? You in your office or something?
I am in my office at school in East Lansing, right across the street from Michigan State University.
Ah, nice. So, let's jump into you and your projects. Why don't you tell us a little bit about you and about the projects you're working on?
Okay. Um, I have been in a school in one way or another for my entire life. I always wanted to do something in education and went right into teaching. Loved that. And then became a school counselor. Um, and never, ever, ever thought I would be a school administrator because they're boring people who only talk to grown-ups and think about money instead of kids. And then I had a superintendent who convinced me to give it a try. And what I found out is maybe they aren't all so bad. So I am now a school administrator and trying not to just think about dollars and grown-ups.
Yeah.
So um,
So, well, real quick, where were you born and raised? Where'd you go to school?
I was born in Royal Oak, raised with a split between Royal Oak and upstate New York. Um, the the home where my heart is will always be upstate New York and the Finger Lakes. That's
Mhm.
where my mom's family is from. I went to the Royal Oak Public Schools, where both my parents were teachers, and then went on to college, ended up with a master's degree at Wayne State.
All right. So, I kind of brought you back to you a little bit because I noticed with you entrepreneurs, you skip over your childhood a lot. So just thank you for that. Let's, so where'd you teach at?
I started out teaching in Detroit and Royal Oak and jumped around a little bit in the Metro Detroit area um, and moved into charter schools at one point because I wasn't feeling like the local publics were doing the best job that they possibly could for our kids. Um, and that's actually how I ended up here by by a kind of circuitous route. Um, and here being a virtual school, our district is the entire state of Michigan.
Hmm.
So I'm I'm feeling hopeful that with the changes that our education system is going with because of COVID, that maybe some good things will come out of it, including more access to virtual education, which isn't necessarily the end all and be all. I'm not here to say that what we're doing is the only way to do stuff, but um, hopefully people are starting to consider what the possibilities are.
So, I'm a statistician, I'm a mathematician by education, and I love looking at data. And I'm designing this experiment in my head right now as I'm ready to ask you this question. As someone who's been in a public school and a charter school, my question has always been, is there a big difference? Do you find the charter school more effective?
Ooh,
Um, is it,
that's a
yeah.
hard question. Um, it, I think the answer that I feel most comfortable with um, is that it really doesn't matter what formula you use. There are good things about your local public schools. There are good things about charters. There are good things about private schools. The thing that really makes the difference, the magic sauce, if you
Yeah.
will, is the staff. Um, the people that you have who show up every damn day and work hard for kids. And in some places make it more of a challenge for people to keep showing up and doing what they do best. And that's one of the things that kind of worries me about some of the local publics. They get to be very political and very inbred, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
Um, and it starts to become about the adults in the system instead of about the kids. And I think when charters started, they were more about the kids. Um, as things grow, sometimes they lose sight of things. So there are some charters that are struggling. Um, but I think because charters have a different DNA, that they sometimes have a better chance of remaining focused on kids.
Yeah. I love that answer. It was a little bit different than what I expected, but really is going to lead me into some more questions in a little
Okay.
bit. But on the other part of my experiment, the experiment that's fake that I'm designing in my head, is that all right? Virtual. I mean, you guys were virtual for how long?
Oh, we started out as virtual. We were
Uh,
founded as a virtual school. This is our 8th year,
okay,
so long
so
before COVID.
So then COVID hits, and everyone's trying virtual, trying hybrids, trying to go back. What, how did that impact you? And one of my first questions is, did did the school districts come to people like you and ask you how to do this?
So this is a funny question. I told you I'd be honest, I guess.
Yeah.
um,
Well,
I used to go to many different things. We go to conferences and different trainings and whatnot. And I'm sitting right beside local publics and other charters and all these people. And I'd introduce myself and I'm, from a virtual school, et cetera, et cetera. And people, oh, you're one of those. And a lot of times I would walk away feeling so defeated because um, we work really hard. There's a lot of good things happening within these walls and across the computers and everything. Um, and being dismissed out of hand was really angering and hurtful. Um, and then COVID comes, and all of a sudden, everybody is like, "Oh, we have to jump online, and we've got to be doing all these things." And I watched teacher friends trying to figure it out, and I watched from the kids' side of things, and the teachers just making a holy mess of it. Um, and all of a sudden, people were like, "Can you tell us what you do, and how do you manage this?" And wow, we never thought about it. And I thought, y'all, I've been sitting here for 7 years trying to talk with you and trying to share ideas and really bring the best of both worlds into education. um, so I'm working real hard at being open and friendly and giving, but there is a little bit of drop of bitterness in that tea because there were a lot of people that didn't even want to admit that we were real schools.
yeah. Do you think that probably correlated like the for-profit universities that are online, that are predators to a lot of poor people, basically,
Mhm.
where they get them into a student loan that pays an outlandish, da 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 da. Do you think the brand kind of got on you a little bit unjustly? I think.
I think so. I do think so. And it's funny you bring that up because I had a crisis of faith in education a while back, and I jumped into financial aid at a for profit university. Um, Never got too far from being in education because I was still there, but I ended up not being able to do it because I was talking to these 18-year-old kids and having them sign loans at like 23% interest. Um, so yeah, there are some really bad actors out there,
Yes.
and that's just wrong on so many different levels. Um, and I always hope that educators are the most open-minded people on the planet, but we don't always tend to be. Um, and virtual schools did get tarred and feathered with the same brush that a lot of the for-profits did, and especially the virtual charters, because there are charter management companies that are for profit, and that's the thing. You got to contend with that. I would love to see us stop looking at the labels and worrying about how we deliver education or who our parent company is or who sits on our school board, and talk about what experience kids are having in classrooms on a daily basis. Because the rest of it, it all comes out in the wash.
Yeah. So a little bit more on the experiment here. I'm
Okay.
sorry, I've completely overwhelmed with that. Um, the if you take COVID out, because I think if you ask somebody, what's the advantage of virtual learning in COVID times, it's that my kid doesn't get sick or bring it
Right.
home or whatever. But if we took that out, what are some of the advantages of virtual learning that maybe people didn't think about or weren't worrying about, or that maybe now are going to be more mainstream?
Sure. Well, there's really two sides to this coin. We talk a lot here about the one thing that brings all of our students together is that something wasn't working for them in their home district. Um, so we get kids who are just the ones who are flying through classes, and you can't offer them enough AP and advanced classes. Um, they're the ones who are semi pro athletes or who are doing ballet in London with the Royal Company. Um, when I first came on board here, I came on as an English teacher, and one of my first calls to a kid, I couldn't get a hold of him and I couldn't figure out why. Come to find out, he was at a diving championship in Russia. And so his time was all, backwards from ours. So there are kids like that who, if they had to go to school every day and sit in a seat, they wouldn't be able to pursue these dreams, because schools can't run all the advanced classes. The ones who are just brilliant and eating it all up wouldn't be able to take all the classes that they could. I can run a class here with one kid in it, and it doesn't make any difference. A local brick and mortar can't do that. They just don't have the rooms and the teachers. So for those real high power kids, that's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin, and really where my heart is, um, are those kids who have to work to help support their family, who have kids of their own and they're doing their best to be a mom or a dad and still get their high school diploma, um, who have been bullied and don't have the they just can't go
Yeah.
back into a toxic situation like that. Um, and we can give the freedom. If you want to go to school at 2 o'clock in the morning, by all means, make it happen. I've got kids who work two jobs and then they sign on and do physics. And I can't, there just isn't enough admiration in me to give away what I think about that. I mean, I struggle just to hold down one job and keep my life straight, right? And here's, 16, 17, 18-year olds who are just killing it. Um, so those are the things that virtual education can bring to the world, and it really, it doesn't do much for the kids who are right in the middle, who who are going to be successful no matter what. But on both ends of the spectrum, it opens up whole new worlds.
So on the second side of the coin, is that where the dropout space is? Is that where the I'll go get my GED later space is?
Yeah. Yep. We actually, here at Great Lakes, have two high schools. We got a traditional high school, and you can go there through 20. And then I help start an alternative school here, and we can keep kids through 22. So we have a lot of kids who did drop out or said, "Oh, I'll just go get my GED." And it always takes my breath away when kids say that, because getting your GED isn't easy.
Yeah.
Um, for those who are more our age, it used to be a lot easier and a lot cheaper, and it's not that way anymore. So I get a lot of kids who come back, and I call them kids, and they're all my kids, but they're students, they're adults in a lot of cases who have tried fending for themselves without a high school diploma. And not that any piece of paper is the end all and be all of something, but I have a lot of people who call me up and they say, "I'm stuck in this job and I can't get a raise until I get my high school diploma. Can I come back? No other school is letting me in. Will you let me in?" Of course. Yes. Please. Let's make it
And
happen.
so can they be 21 with a year left in school and you can get them?
I can.
Do you get them a diploma or a GED?
We do diplomas.
Okay.
I try to discourage GEDs. Um, no matter what route you take, what matters is that you do what is right and you can get whatever you need to move on to the next phase of your life. Um, I think everybody can achieve a high school diploma, so I push for that. Um, but I worked in a while back. I worked in a GED completion program. No, nothing wrong with that. Not anything wrong with a GED at all. But I think unfortunately people get in their head that they can't get a high school diploma, so that they're then left with a GED. And I'm here to tell you that anybody can get a high school diploma. If you want it, we can make that happen.
So, even if you're older than 22?
Yeah, there's adult ed. We don't.
Oh, okay.
I don't have
You
adult ed
don't.
yet. Working on
Okay.
it. Working on it,
Okay.
but not yet.
So, one more question, then I'm going to switch subjects on you a little bit. Um, and sorry, I got my foot tangled in a cord. Now I can't remember my question. Oh, how is it funded? How do the kids have to pay tuition, or how does that work?
We are a public charter, so that means we're funded through the state and the federal government. So just like the street down or the school down the street from you, your local public, we get the same funds that they do, except we don't get quite as much, and we get even less because we're a virtual school. And Michigan
Hmm.
doesn't believe in equally funding all types of educational opportunities. So um, it is tuition free.
All right. So, this sounds like a great opportunity, but you have bigger ideas.
I do. So I've heard a lot about the number of businesses that are being started during COVID, um, and that's so exciting. I mean, because this is just an awful thing to live through, but I'm so happy to hear that there are people taking advantage of it. Um, and I'm getting to be one of those people. So I'm excited about this opportunity. A group of friends and I are working on starting a school, and anybody who knows me has heard this at least once. I have always wanted to have a residential public school. So think boarding school, right?
Hmm.
But no tuition. So anybody can get the that immersive experience of being at a residential school, and not have to pay anything for it. So part of what I keep looking at with this, and I'm so excited that this is something that's happening. Um, I worked in a lot of places where kids are basically raising themselves because their parents have to work. Maybe their parents have issues they're dealing with themselves, and it breaks my heart when you've got a first grader who comes in and can tell you how to run the washing machine and you know knows how to cook, and at 7 is basically a miniature adult. Um, and kids who tell me, I know that my mom's not going to be home. I'm not going to see her for the next 3 days because she's working 2 jobs, and so it's just me and my siblings. I don't want that for anybody. No kid should have to have that experience. Um, so part of the idea of a residential place is that kids would know where their next meal is coming from. They would know where their head is going to lay every night, and that they would just be in a place where they didn't have to worry about anything besides being a kid, and that's it, right? Um, but it's actually bigger than that, and I get so excited. So you'll have to cut me off and tell me when it's time to stop
I'm
talking.
not going to cut you off. Let's go.
But I don't just want a school. I want a place that will be the heart of a community. Um, I want to be able to offer mental health services and physical health, um, job training for the parents, parenting classes for the parents, food distribution, all of the things that we so desperately need in so many of our communities, um, because people are working so hard and they just aren't given the opportunity to move forward because they're always just given enough. Like it gets into universal income and the whole. I want a lot of things, but the project, the school is meant to be the heart of a whole community. And that's what I'm looking at starting, hopefully for the next school year. Although working with the Department of Education and some things like that, I'm not on my own timetable, unfortunately. So hopefully September 2021, uh, New Vista Learning Academy will be a thing. Um, but if not, stay tuned. It'll be soon.
So you said tuition would be free. Would room and board be free too?
Absolutely. Not
Okay.
a penny for any family, any student, everything provided.
Okay. So there's two things you got me thinking of.
Okay.
One is I'm going to go back to when we were doing the experiment and you said the staff.
Yes,
That's the secret sauce, right?
it is. Yep.
So the staff is, I mean, if they're dedicated, these kids are going to learn.
Mhm.
And then the other thing is, who's the customer of a school?
Ooh, that is a very deep philosophical question. So, um, my first answer, and I'm gonna claim that I can get two answers on this. I'm making up my own rules. Um, Obviously, the kids. Schools aren't built for adults; they're built for kids. Um, and everything that happens in a school should happen because it's good for kids. So they are the clients, the consumers, the end all and be all. We forget that sometimes, and that's part of where being an administrator, there are considerations that I have to make from this vantage point that aren't necessarily about individual kids, and it really irks me, but it is part of the deal that I
Yeah.
signed up for. Um, but the second client, I think, really is the community. If schools aren't building a community, they've got no business being there. Um, I think that about a lot of institutions, not just schools. If you aren't doing something for your community and making it a better place, not quite sure you have right to take up space. Um, but especially for schools, because schools, in my mind at least, are meant to be the thing that creates new. They're the generators and the regenerators for a community. And if we aren't serving the community, then we've got a problem.
Do you want 3 or 4 answers? Because I don't have limits. There's no rules on this show.
I do think there are a lot of clients. I think parents also. I think COVID has shown quite dramatically how big of a part schools play in allowing parents to live their lives. If you talk to people who are suddenly working from home and trying to be their kids' teacher and trying to do all the things that they used to do, you suddenly realize that perhaps the things that we thought about teachers, um, you know, why do you go into teaching? June, July, and August, those kind of things. Maybe we weren't quite being fair, but parents need us, or else they don't get to do all the things that parents need to do, like hold down a job. I mean, it's a lot to ask to have parents be doing their Zoom meetings and running businesses and also be trying to teach geometry to their kid.
Yeah. Why is, well, I'm sorry. I'll ask this in a little bit. Do you have more
Nope.
answers? Okay.
Go ahead.
So I want to ask you something else first, actually. Um, what do you, So we have these magnet schools and we have these different focuses that schools are starting to look at. And you know, the city, they go and they talk to the capital area IT council and they talk to the
Right.
insurance companies, and then they say, okay, we're going to make you some workers and we're going to put this charter school and we're going to breed them, not breed them, but educate them to be your employees.
Hmm.
Is that the role of education?
Absolutely not. That is what education was created as. Um, if we go back and we talk about the public school system that we have, historically speaking, it was created to make factory workers. It wasn't created to make poets and entrepreneurs and scientists and all of the brilliant and wonderful things that people can be. It was created to make automatons. Get up every day, go to the same spot at the same time, do the same job, come home too tired to think, and then do it all again the next day. And a lot of schools do that job really well, unfortunately. Um, some schools, and I think the magnet schools are often lucky in some ways because they're given a little bit more leeway to do things. They let kids be kids. They let them be innovators. They let them be imaginative. Um, and that's what education is supposed to be. If we go way back before the Industrial Revolution and we talk about one room schoolhouses, or we even go back to Socrates and Plato, it was about creating the best version of a person that you could possibly be. Let's see how we can grow you. Let's see what you can be without putting you in a box and telling you that's your box and whatever else you want, too bad. Um, so I, I I think it's great to have business support for education, and we definitely do need people who can fill jobs. But we also know, and this will go back to your statistics, we also know that the kids that we're educating today, the jobs that we're educating them for aren't going to be here when they are not even halfway through their careers. There'll be jobs that we haven't even dreamed of that these kids
Yes.
will need to be doing. So if we are making people who can do specific jobs, we're failing at our most basic task. We need people who can do any job. Not that, I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning and go do brain surgery or, anything like that. But if we don't help kids realize that they can reinvent themselves as needed and that they can imagine things for themselves that they didn't previously think possible, then we're not doing our basic job.
So I had a question prepared, but let's see if you negated it.
Okay.
What, play or worksheets?
Oh gosh, play all day long, all day long.
I know the answer to. I knew the answer to that question. Um, so, man, this is we're way over time, but I'm okay
Okay.
with it. Are you okay with
Yep,
it?
I'm fine.
Um, and we might have to have an encore show to talk about more about this. Let me yeah. What do you want to tell us something more about the new school and any events, any fundraising? I don't know. Are you having a bake sale or
Um, it makes me think one of my favorite posters that there's a poster that says, "Wouldn't it be a great day when the Air Force has to hold a bake sale to buy their new fighter jet, and schools have all the funding they could ever need?" Yeah. We aren't to the spot yet where we can do that. We are still waiting for some approvals from the Department of Education. Um, so I'm talking about a thing that exists, but has not been given a stamp of approval yet. So eagerly awaiting, hopefully in the next few weeks, that. Um, but when that does happen, yes, I would love to talk about bake sales and all the things that we'll do, um, because I am very, I do believe it has to be a symbiotic relationship with the community. We can't choke one another off and just take all we want and run. We have to give back. But for a school like I'm thinking about to work, there has to be a community that's willing to support it. So a doctor who's willing to donate a couple of hours a week to come in and make sure my kids are healthy. Some mental health folks, therapists and counselors who are willing to donate some time to come in and make sure the kids have everything they need so that they're mentally healthy. Um, I've always been really good about asking for things. Um, and that's one of the challenges I found at a virtual school. I don't know who to ask because when I would be in a local brick and mortar and I had a kid who needed a winter coat, I could go to a store down the street and say, look, this is a kid in our community. Can you please? And I would go back numerous times so the people would get to know me. Um, and I might have to do a really hard sell the first time, but it got easier and easier. Here, having a district that's the size of Michigan, it's really difficult for me when I have one day a kid in Negaunee who needs a coat and the next day a kid in Taylor who needs a coat. It's hard to build those relationships. Um, so I absolutely think this type of school needs to keep doing what it's doing because it's certainly filling a niche. But I want to get back to that local where I can build those community relationships and make sure my kids are getting all the things that they need every day.
Do you have a location already, or at least one identified?
We are looking in the greater Lansing area. Um, so part of it is finding a location that does all the things that we want it to do. Um, to have room for both residential areas and learning areas, a commercial kitchen, all of those things. You can't most of the time just walk in and say, oh yeah, this is it. I'll just put a new coat of paint on it and we'll be all set. Um, so we're working on it and looking for a place. Um, so that's definitely something when we're ready. I'll need to put some feelers out into the community for that. But the Lansing area is where we're going to start, and never hurts to dream big. The hope is that once we get New Vista Lansing started, then we can talk about New Vista Detroit, New Vista Grand Rapids, New Vista Flint, and take the model and duplicate it in other places that have a need for that.
I love it. I love the whole concept. If you don't mind, I want to talk about the fledge a little bit and a hypothesis we have, and then what the how I see you fill in this gap, and that'll
Okay.
be more clear. So we believe that through educational systems, through predatory algorithms and things like we talk about with the for-profit, that people get trapped in like debt, and they get trapped in a very narrow view of opportunity, or somebody yells at them so much when they want to do art that they can't even do art anymore, but they were really born to be an artist. And all of us are born to do something, and we get kind of pulled away from that with all of the institutions and the you know toxic masculinity and things like that, until we're doing something that we hate doing,
Mm-hmm.
and we can never get back to who we wanted to be because we have debt and stigma and all kinds of things in our way. And instead of being able to close that gap, people fill it with substances and alcohol and
Yes.
depression and suicide and abuse and all these social ills. And to give kids freedom, and even you said the parents, you would be helping them in the new school. A parent, they can be tough to work with as a teacher, right?
I
I know
can.
that's,
Yep.
but these parents are trying to figure out where the next meal's coming from. They're trying to figure out how they're going to pay rent. They're going to, their insurance payment. And the part of the brain that has vision and planning shuts off when you're in that survival mode. So the parents really, it's not like they're just doing this on purpose.
They're
We've
doing the
done
absolute
this.
best they can.
Yeah.
Absolute best.
And it just, it sounds wonderful to be teaching the family. I mean, we've gone a couple generations without a lot of mentorship in some of these communities. A lot of men being put into prison,
Hmm.
justly or unjustly, mostly unjustly. It's taking our mentors away. It's taking our examples away. And I just love the whole concept. I love it.
Well, thank you. I'm really hoping that it can become a self-feeding cycle that, um, once we push this along enough to get it going, that everybody will start to look and go, wow, look at that. We've got, parents who are happier and healthier. We've got kids who are coming out and able to do great and wonderful things. We've got a thriving community, and that all of a sudden some of the changes that are happening because of COVID will start to happen for maybe good reasons, that will take another look at our education system and not react because of a worldwide pandemic, but will react because we see something great happening, and we'll want to strive towards that instead of running away from something.
And then the other comment I wanted to make that you really got me thinking of as you were talking is that, if we're teaching these kids to go do a specific job, and other districts or other communities are teaching their kids to think and be innovative and to dream of a future that doesn't exist yet, then those other communities are going to be making the jobs for our community, right? And we could be the job makers, or maybe all of us can be. It can be more collaborative and more cooperative. And
Yes.
I don't know, I just love everything you're saying about this.
I I know that, I get made fun of sometimes, usually very thinly veiled, but, I'm called a dreamer and an idealist, and okay, sure,
Yes.
I am. But I also believe that the only way that we can get to a better world is through our kids. And if we aren't opening that up and doing all of the things, and I'm not saying that my model is the only way to do it, but if we aren't giving that our very best shot, then I don't I don't know what hope we have, really.
Yeah. So Dustin over here is commenting a little bit and he's saying big truths to what you're saying. And I know he's chomping at the bit. Ask her how the Fledge can be involved. So you and I will talk. I don't want to put you on any spots or anything
If
like that,
you
but this
can
sounds,
absolutely, I mean, I know we've had one very small place where we worked together. I was able to gift you some math workbooks that I
yeah,
hope did something for somebody at the Fledge. Um, but truly, this is the kind of thing that I live and breathe for, because if we don't make these connections, um, you've got the people there that I want, right? That I want to open doors for, and bring what I've worked for my entire life to bear on that, and help make it a um, better everything. So if we aren't talking about how we can help one another, shame on us.
yeah, this is right up our alley and we would love to help. We would love it. Um, so what's your mission?
My mission is to disrupt education and to make it be for what the future really holds, to rise up
Yeah.
against the system that has been here for far too long.
Yeah, I was going to ask you a bunch of questions about that system. Can it be fixed? Is it the solution? All of that. I think we've answered all that. I think it's pretty clear that it does need a disruption and it does need a complete kind of overhaul.
Hmm.
And not just in, the logistics of it all, but in even the mindset, even how
Yes.
we think about it. So very, very good. What do you do every damn day to make that mission of disruption happen?
So every damn day, I get up and I come to work and I try to figure out one way at least to sneak some of this in, um, and push just a little bit further, whether it's pushing a kid who didn't think they could do something to get there, or a teacher who keeps doing the same thing over and over and expects different results to try something different. But just looking for what can we do better. So I tend to I guess what I do every damn day is I frustrate people.
Then you're
um,
doing it right.
because I'm always saying, well, you can do better, right? Yeah.
Yeah. It's so this is the second time you've reminded me of this quote. Ralph Waldo Emerson said that the reasonable person tries to adapt themselves to the world. The unreasonable person tries to adapt the world to them. Therefore, all progress depends on that unreasonable
Reasonable
person.
person. Yes, it
So,
does.
good job at being unreasonable.
I think I need to put
So,
it on my business card.
so yesterday on the show, we had Masaki, and he runs the poetry room. And I passed a question from yesterday to today, and we'll do the same in a minute. And Masaki has a question for you that I think you might have answered, but let's sum it up. What are you going to do in 2021 to change or keep changing the landscape of Lansing?
I am going to start a school the likes of which the Lansing area has never seen, and take our kids to the very next step.
Yeah, I like it a lot. So tomorrow on the show, we have Betsy DeVos. What would you like to ask?
Oh, I hope you're kidding, because I got a lot to say to Betsy.
No, I thought you might think that's funny. Tomorrow on the show, we've got Erica from the Refugee. She's the executive director of the Refugee Development Center. What question would you like me to pass on to Erica?
I would like to hear her best advice for radical self-care in this world that we're living in. Um, this whole COVID thing has brought home that we'd best be taking care of ourselves,
Yeah,
or else trouble awaits.
yeah. And, teachers putting themselves out there, having to change and all of that. The community centers like the Fledge or the Refugee Development Center really seeing a lot of trauma and a lot of pain. That's such an important question that you're asking.
That secondary trauma that the helper professions get, it's real.
It's
It is
super real.
absolutely real.
Yeah, I'm shaking constantly. Um, what what do you do for radical self-care? What's your best advice?
Oh gosh. So one thing that I have been doing, that has really kind of snuck in. I didn't realize it at first, but once I kind of took stock, I've gone back to some of the things that I used to love to do that I had forgotten about. Um, Things like reading and sewing, um, creative kind of things, or thinking kind of things. Um, and it's been kind of amazing to me that I'm always hurrying and thinking about the next thing that I have to do and what am I going to do tomorrow, and oh my gosh, I got to get this done by next week. And I'm able to do some of these things like sewing, that I'm just there in that moment. And if I'm not, I was so over my finger. So you kind of have to be. Or when I'm reading, I'm not sitting on the couch. I'm, you know, landscaping a new settlement on Mars or whatever I'm reading, and to be able to either slow down and really be in the moment, or conversely step off and be somewhere totally different. Those are the things that are feeding me these days.
Oops, we have a little bit of internet. Are you still there?
I am here.
Oh, okay. All right. The being creative and having, you know, the lockdown seems like it took a lot of freedoms away from us, but it also gave us a lot of freedoms. It gave us that time where we weren't out just consuming at the mall or whatever we did, to be, alone with ourselves and with our
Mhm.
creativity. Do you think that's what sparked the large uptick of uh, businesses that formed this year? It's the number one in U.S. history number of businesses that formed in last year, 2020.
I do. I think that as Americans as a whole, this is a lot of my opinion here, but we don't like to stop and think. We're not very comfortable sitting with things and thinking. And, that hurry and do, and we forget about the be part. And we have been forced to stop and just be. Um, and that's given people opportunities to do things that they wouldn't have done, like start a business or, take up a hobby that they used to love and worked out of their life. Um, so I know that there's a lot of despair and darkness around COVID and all the things that are happening, but I have I have to believe that there are good things too, and that we're all perhaps given an opportunity to take stock
Yeah.
and figure out how we're going to come out the other side of this better versions of ourselves.
So imagine what a UBI, a universal basic income, could do for us, to give us that time to take stock, and how much richer this country would be because of it.
We would be richer, not necessarily in dollars, although that's a whole different story, but just as people. I
Yeah.
can't imagine the great things that could happen. A big believer in UBI and all of the other social infrastructure that we need to move forward. Um, I'm hopeful.
Yeah.
After 4 years of not a lot of hope, I'm very hopeful.
What would you like to take us out with?
um, Gosh, I would I would like to ask people to think what they can do for somebody else in their community. What they can do.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you so much for being on the show and sharing all of this with us.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
And everyone, tomorrow on the show, we'll have Erica with the Refugee Development Center. And stay tuned every damn day at 2 for another episode of Every Damn Day. So I will see you later. Thank you, Kelli.
Thank you.
Bye bye.